Welcome to Building Families, Bridging Differences, a family law journey.
Hello and welcome to Building Families, Bridging Differences, a family law journey with Shelly Booth Cooley, founder of the Cooley Law Firm. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today's episode is the surrogacy path, navigating the journey together. Shelly, great having you back.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So this is a really interesting topic, surrogacy, and what inspired you to focus part of your legal practice on the intricacies of surrogacy and assisted reproduction?
Who doesn't want to help people build families? I can't think of a more wonderful thing to do. It is amazing and enjoyable and so exciting to help people build their families. When I learned about this area of law, I couldn't not get involved.
Yeah, it's such a especially surrogacy itself. It's amazing to think about what these women are willing to do to help another family build their family, or another couple build their family. It's I mean, I have a kid. I saw what my wife went through when she was pregnant. I mean, that is a valiant cause.
It absolutely is. And the carriers that I work with, you can call them surrogates, you can call them carriers. Those terms are usually interchangeable, but carriers are the most amazing women I've ever come upon. They are doing this because they want to help other people build their families. It is absolutely amazing. I have 2 kids myself, and you could not pay me enough money in the entire world. If you gave me all the money in the world, I would not do it again.
I think my wife might say the same thing.
Yeah. I'm not a good pregnant person. So yes, our surrogates are absolutely amazing human beings that really want to give this gift to families, and so exciting and wonderful to be part of this process.
Can you kind of walk us through the typical surrogacy journey from a legal perspective? What are some of those key milestones that intended parents and surrogates should be aware of?
Well, there are 2 different ways to go through a surrogacy journey. You can do what most folks do is they work with an agency who helps match the surrogate with the intended parent. The intended parents are the parents who will be the parents through this process. Or you can go an independent route, which is where the intended parents and the carrier find each other through whatever means they find each other, and they match themselves. So we have that. That's the initial thing, is getting matched with your surrogate. Then the surrogate has to be medically cleared, which is done by the IVF clinic that we'll be working with. And once they are medically cleared, then they go to legal. And that's when our art attorneys come in. And what we do is we draft a contract, which is called a gestational carrier contract, based on the terms that the parties have agreed upon. And the agency assists with these terms. You've got base compensation. You have compensation in the event that specific events occur. So contingent compensation. And then you have compensation in the event of bed rest, lost wages, a monthly allowance, which is quite small, but it's to help with incidentals.
Sure.
When you're pregnant, there's prenatal vitamins, just those types of things. And all of those have to be laid out in the contract, so that we can make sure that when we're going through this process, we've got everything covered. Because the last thing you want to do is have an issue come up in your contract, or have an issue come up in the journey, and you look to the contract and it didn't address it. So you want to make sure that when you go through this process, that you are in fact working with an expert in surrogacy, like amicable divorce, which I do. I am a dual fellow of the Academy of Adoption and Assisted Reproduction Attorneys. That means that I'm an expert in adoptions as well as assisted reproduction, which includes surrogacy and donor agreements. So,
Okay.
another organization that you apply to, they vet you and they let you in or they don't.
Like you said, it's very similar to what we talked about in our last episode about the amicable divorce.
Correct. Yes. Yes. They get input from other industry professionals to make sure that you do have the experience to be a member. So,
In your experience in doing this, what are some of the most common challenges that you see, come up during the surrogacy process?
I would say that, especially now with it's not necessarily an issue between the intended parents and the surrogate. It is more an issue of what does one state allow versus another state. And that's where things can get very, very tricky, especially in with some states being very surrogacy friendly, like Nevada, and other states not being surrogacy friendly because of restrictions on surrogacy outright or reproductive health care restrictions, those types of issues. Because when we're going through this process, we want to make sure that everybody is on the same page as to terms and compensation. And we also want to make sure that the states are going to allow the parties to do what they think is in their best interests.
Mm-hmm.
So the last thing we want is the states saying, no, this is not permitted because we say so, when this is something that all of the parties agree upon, but the states may not allow.
Right.
It's been a little bit interesting with the way things are nationally, just as far as some of the reproductive healthcare changes.
Yep.
That has made this process a little bit more interesting.
We could do a whole episode on that, or a series of episodes on that.
A million episodes on that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame because this should not be something that should be difficult. I mean, they shouldn't make it more
really
difficult.
Shouldn't.
This is all people who want to do something really good for a family unit, for a child, and everything else. There shouldn't be problems.
We shouldn't have all these roadblocks.
Yeah, exactly. It's a shame.
Right.
So speaking of these roadblocks and everything, how do you, as an attorney, help intended parents ensure that their rights are protected, navigate those roadblocks and handle everything regarding, parental recognition and custody and whatnot?
To enter into a surrogacy and enforceable surrogacy arrangement in Nevada, we have some requirements. And one of those requirements is that both parties have to be represented by independent counsel. And that ensures that both parties' interests are protected and represented in the process. So what that means is that one attorney is working with the intended parents, the other attorney is working with the carrier, and we're making sure that we craft an agreement that furthers both parties' interests. And this isn't a typical situation where you have two parties to a contract and they're adverse to each other. This is a very different kind of contract, which is why it's a lot of fun to do these contracts. But we are contracting the terms that are going to govern building this family for these parties, which is really cool, that we get to do this. So I think that the biggest thing is that we've got professionals that are committed to building this family, and we are going to work toward resolution and finalization of the contract. And that really is, I think, again, you've got professionals that are committed to this goal and committed to helping your clients see this process through to its end.
And speaking, continuing on with the contract and the agreement, like what are the essential elements that you feel should always be included in a well-structured surrogacy agreement?
Well, it varies by state. If it's permitted, some states have, very elaborate statutes regarding it. Some states don't allow it. Some states, don't prohibit it, but have no statutes regarding. So it's kind of interesting in other places. In Nevada, we have wonderful statutes, and I've said previously. I think we have some of the best surrogacy statutes in the world. We really are surrogacy and family friendly. So what do we need in a surrogacy contract in Nevada is we need to have both parties represented by independent counsel. We need to spell out the terms of the contract. And in the contract, we need to have, provisions regarding medical providers. The carrier chooses the provider with the input from intended parents. That's very important because we want to make sure that the carrier is getting the medical care that she is comfortable with and needs. We include provisions regarding embryo transfer. How many embryos? Back in the olden days, it used to be, 2, possibly 3, depending on the quality of the embryos. Now, best practices, unless it's an exception, is 1. And we have provisions regarding, whether the embryo split. Do you have is it a singleton? Is it a multiples pregnancy? And what are those provisions going to look like? We need to make sure that all parties are on the same page with regard to termination and selective reduction. We need to make sure that in Nevada, at the end of our contracts, we have to have declarations by each party that they understand the terms of the contract. They are entering into the contract willingly, not under duress, and that they're signing the contract in accordance with Nevada law. We need to have choice of law provisions because we want to know, if we're dealing with 2 different states, which state is going to control as far as decisions regarding the contract and enforcement. And then we include provisions regarding when the parentage process is going to begin and where. So with regard to parentage, oftentimes parentage is handled in the state that the surrogate resides. So if the surrogate is in a different state, then we need to make sure that we've got provisions so that that process can be started in the state where the surrogate lives and will be giving birth.
Years ago, my wife was an egg donor, and I remember we had to.
How exciting!
Yeah, and we had to go to like a therapy session, like we had to sit down with somebody and talk about. Just to make sure, she wanted to talk to me, she wanted to talk to my wife, obviously, and all that. Is that
right?
Something that is that the same in the surrogacy journey as well?
Absolutely. That is part of medical clearance. Well, before they even get medically cleared, they have to do a site clearance, which is, we consider that to be part of the medical clearance process. But yes, we want to make sure that everybody is going to be okay psychologically through this process, because it can be very difficult. As intended parents, you are allowing someone to carry your child. That's a lot of trust. During pregnancy, there's so many things that you have to be careful of.
Yeah.
Caffeine consumption, all of these things. And in our contracts, we have prohibitions that are, if you look at this list, they're all very common sense prohibitions. They're exactly what your OBGYN is going to tell you to do and not do. But we put them in the contract because we want to make sure that everybody is on the same page. And then, as a surrogate, you're carrying someone else's child. How are you going to feel about that? Like, these are huge issues.
Huge,
Huge.
Yeah. And then how do you feel once you have the baby? Because there's obviously a connection between a mother and a child that you just can't deny. So how do they react to that as well? Yeah.
Well, and it's really cool with some of our journeys, the surrogates kind of become aunties to the child that she carried. And they may not be spending, every weekend together, but our carries are getting to see these children grow up. And
that's cool.
Yeah, which I think is really neat. To me, that would, if there was any reason to do it, that would be it. I'm like, send me dog and baby pictures. I'm going to be a happy camper. So,
I
I
just
think
don't want another baby, but send me the
right,
pictures.
right. Yes. Send me the pictures. I want to, that's one of the things I tell my clients is you have to send me pictures of the babies. I want
Aw.
to see, yeah, I want to see baby pictures. I want to see, this is why we're doing this. Let me have this, just let me have this final gift. So
Give me the picture. That's all I ask. Give me the
yeah,
picture.
I want the pictures. Yes, yes. So it can be such a beautiful process and such a meaningful process for everyone involved.
So for anyone who might be considering a surrogacy journey, whether they're on the surrogate side or the intending parent side, at what point do you recommend they talk to someone like you and get a lawyer involved to kind of help the process?
If you're working with an agency, they will actually help facilitate this process and kind of guide you to when it's time to get attorneys involved. There's some people that are very proactive and have already talked to attorneys before they even contact an agency. So it really depends on your comfort level. If you want to just go in and trust the entire process, let your agency lead the way. If you like to, have all your ducks in a row before you do something, check out attorneys. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that you find an attorney who is an expert in surrogacy, because the last thing that you want to happen is you get to the part of this process where your child is going to be born, and then you learn that your contract is not enforceable and you can't establish parentage with it. Then
Yeah,
we
that
have to go through adoption, termination of parental rights procedures of the surrogate. It can get very, very messy very quickly. So my recommendation is that when you're checking out attorneys, you want to go to the Academy of Adoption and Assisted Reproduction Attorneys website, and they've got Find an Attorney, and you've got the folks that are that have been qualified by this organization to work with folks in this process.
great. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you want someone who knows what they're doing for something like this. It's a specific area, so definitely important.
Yes, it is a very, very specific area, and you want to make sure that you have folks who know who you're doing. This is not the time to go see a general practitioner.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Not a good idea. Or not even just somebody that does family law. You want someone who has a family building practice.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in to Building Families, Bridging Differences, a family law journey with Shelly Booth Cooley. To connect with Shelly and her team, head to CooleyLawLV.com. And please like and subscribe to our channel. We love having you be a part of our community. Shelly, I loved having you here. This is a really interesting topic, and I appreciate all your insight in the discussion.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.